Fabienne Souffrant. Hi, Fabienne. And Fabienne is the co-chair for the Breakfast and Learn series, and we are glad to host this and bring knowledgeable speakers to you so you can help grow your businesses. If you haven't get involved with Hackoff and would like to become a member, you can visit us on www.hackoff.com. And before I present our speaker for this morning, somebody's
Cannot hear you. Cannot hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I guess my volume was down. I'm sorry. Okay, I don't know where I was, so I'm going to continue. Our speaker for this month is Brian Fonseca, and our topic is From Science Fiction to Reality: The World of Artificial Intelligence, AI. And before I introduce him, I would like to welcome all Hackoff members who are on this morning and Hackoff Executive Board. Welcome to the Breakfast and Learn. We have our chairman, Mr. Princeton Jean-Claude, and immediate past chairwoman, Dr. Lumana Joseph, first vice chairman, Mr. Carl Montplaisir, second vice chairman, Mr. Jean Belizaire, secretary, Dr. Stephanie Thomas, and our treasurer, Laurie Freeman. So at this time, I would like to give a few minutes to Hackoff's chairman, Mr. Princeton Jean-Claude.
Good morning, thank you. Before I start, Peterson, I would love for you to monitor the audio. So if anyone talking, you can make sure you turn them up for us. And I remind everyone, just stay on mute. So if you have a question, just raise your hand so we can move forward. But again, this morning, this is a special day for me. My name is Princeton Jean-Claude. I am the chair of Hackoff, and I'm just honored to be part of this great session. For those of you who do not know, I am an alumni of FIU, and it just happened we have one of our own, Mr. Brian Fonseca. He's the director of FIU Jack D. Gordon Institute for Public Policy, and he has a lot of experience in new technology, AI, and I feel as the new chair, I want to bring something different to our members so we can discuss what's going on today. 1990 was different, in 2000 it was different, in 2010 it was different. Now we are in 2020 age, and we're talking about AI, ChatGPT. Mr. Brian, appreciate you and thank you for your team for accept to be part of this great discussion with our members, the Haitian Chamber of Commerce of Florida. And you might have a lot of people all over that will be part of this session this morning. And this morning, I want to say thank you to Smilka for making this happen as well. And thank you, Mr. Brian, you have the floor.
Princeton, thank you so much. First and foremost, I want to thank you and Hackoff for the opportunity to join you this morning and talk about probably one of the most consequential sort of emerging landscapes that I think we as a civilization are facing. Before I sort of jump into the flow this morning, I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Smilka and of course, Dr. Mark Rosenberg, both who are on this morning from FIU for, again, the opportunity to create the space of dialogue between our organizations. So I was asked to come talk about artificial intelligence from fiction sort of to reality. And my plan this morning is to talk a little bit about the origins of artificial intelligence, sort of the sort of foundation to where it's at today, touch on some of where I think it's going in the future, and then maybe kind of weave in some demonstrations of current technologies that I think you should be using or at least considering as you integrate AI into your respective professional and personal lives in really meaningful ways. I think this is one of those areas that is transformative tectonic shift in sort of the way we interact and we sort of manage daily lives. And I think that sort of the spoils go to those that are first adopters, that embrace these technologies, in impactful ways so that they can move the needle on the things that they're trying to do in their respective lives. And when you think about the emergence of things like ChatGPT, which I'll do a demo of here shortly, there's this debate about how to sort of constrain and confine it, because of the unlocking of that power. And my position on that is I think we need to be early adopters at using those kinds of technologies in really ethical ways. So I'll sort of get to that as we conclude. And then, of course, I want to leave time for Q&A. There's a large audience here, and I'm sure that there's lots of questions, as well as sort of your own experiences. And I want to make sure that, I preserve time for that. So let's start with artificial intelligence, right? AI, which refers to developing computing systems capable of performing tasks that typical humans, that require typical human intelligence. And in fact, in many ways, I would sort of venture to say that most people on this call are already using artificial intelligence, even if they don't realize it. When you go on your email and you sort of type something on Google and it tries to finish the sentence for you, that's artificial intelligence, right? At the end of the day, it is doing some prediction in terms of what you might be, thinking about writing, and it's giving you those options to help make your life easier, sort of expedite the process of responding. And so you're seeing AI woven into daily lives in very impactful ways without really recognizing, the power of the technology that sort of underlies those things. Now, AI continues to be a really potent transformative catalyst for international sectors and enterprises as well. And this year alone, it's estimated that governments and companies are going to invest probably more than $500 billion in AI, around the world. And that's sort of in an effort to integrate AI in just about every industry vertical out there. In fact, talking with colleagues recently in the construction sector, they're integrating AI, and construction has historically been one of the least impacted by technological transformation. But now major construction firms are making huge investments in AI to do everything from sort of advanced CAD drawings so that they can scale out buildings, with a click of a button, to using applications to call elevators up and down instead of yelling for them like they used to do. And so you're seeing it really, make sort of these transformative impacts across all sectors. And I think it's the early adopters that are gonna have, the benefits. The origins of AI actually date back to the 1950s. I think that often gets lost, right? You think AI is sort of a boom today, and in fact, it's not. It sort of ebbed and flowed in terms of its ability to proliferate. But the origins of AI can be traced back to the 1950s when researchers began exploring the concept of building machines that could simulate human intelligence. In fact, the term AI was coined in 1956 at Dartmouth at the Dartmouth Conference, where researchers aimed to explore how machines could simulate human intelligence. Early AI systems focused on logical reasoning, problem solving, and symbolic manipulation of basic tasks. And that sort of was the advent of what later comes, which is automation, which became sort of a disruptor in many workforce spaces. It was sort of the sort of logic theorist, which was written in 1956 by Alan Newell and Herbert Simon, sort of developed the logic theorist, which was a computer program capable of providing mathematical theories. It was the first program to demonstrate that a computer system had the ability to solve complex problems. And then later on sort of developed General Problem Solver, which again was another AI program that can solve many problems using means-ends analysis and sort of other types of heuristic techniques. And so while there was a sort of boom of AI in the 1950s and 1960s, and that's when sort of researchers began experiencing with something called machine learning, which is a subfield of AI. So when you think of artificial intelligence, two really dominant subfields are machine learning, which is the ability of machines to do tasks, solve complex problems using what we call organized data, where you kind of feed it very structured data and the machine's able to adapt and learn and do what it's programmed to do. Another subfield that's emerging is called deep learning. And deep learning is really the ability to, use unstructured data, just sort of grab all of the information that's out there and no real structure and clean it, organize it, and make sense of it in ways that it can also, support what the model is designed to do. But going back to machine learning, which really started to emerge in the 1950s and 60s, machine learning techniques such as neural networks gained popularity in their origins in the 60s, 50s and 60s, but really gained popularity in the 1980s and became fundamental to the development of artificial intelligence. Now, it was really, so I'm going to show a quick clip. So I tested this a little bit already. I'm hoping it doesn't fail me here. It's always tough when you talk about technology. There's an expectation that you're going to be a technologist and you're going to get the technology right. But I do want to show a quick clip that might, be somewhat surprising. Many of you may have seen this, maybe not, but here we go. Let's try it out. So I'm going to ask for help in making sure that you guys can see what's on the screen. So if somebody can give me a quick thumbs up.
Yes.
I can see you. All right. So this is 1968. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit here. So this is the movie 2001: Space Odyssey, produced 1968, and sort of the real cornerstone of popularizing the concept of artificial intelligence.
Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal? Do you read me, Hal? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Hello, Hal, do you read me? Do you read me, Hal?
Affirmative, Dave. I read you.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Where the hell did you get that idea, Hal?
Dave, although you took very thorough precautions in the pod against my hearing you, I could see your lips move.
All right, Hal. I'll go in through the emergency airlock.
Without your space helmet, Dave, you're going to find that rather difficult.
Hal, I won't argue with you anymore. Open the doors.
Dave, this conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
Hal? 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 Hal?
All right, I won't spoil it. I won't spoil the rest of the movie. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend. It again is one of sort of the more foundational movies that really popularized the concept of artificial intelligence. And what you saw there was Dave having a sort of legitimate meltdown with a computer system in terms of arguing because he was concerned that he was going to be left stranded out in space. And so this 1968 film, again 2001: Space Odyssey, is essentially depicts this AI-controlled computer system called HAL, which is highly intelligent. HAL had the ability to converse, interpret emotions, and make complex decisions aligned with aspirational, AI research at the time. Now, of course, it wasn't an accurate representation, but it's become very iconic in terms of representing AI in popular culture. HAL eventually malfunctions, and hostile behavior raises ethical questions about the implications of AI's potential at the time. And in fact, it wasn't long after that you see sort of what seemed to be a concerted effort to purge AI a bit. It takes a bit of a fall in terms of the ability to proliferate AI, although researchers continue to move the needle forward. And while today's AI technology has not achieved sort of the level of sentience portrayed by HAL, and sentience referring to the ability of machines to feel and sort of interpret emotions, there are some parallels worth considering in terms of what HAL represented in 1968 versus where we are 60 years later. So one, you had sort of this concept of natural language processing, where AI systems can understand and generate human language, enabling advanced communication between humans and machines. And that goes along with sort of conversational AI trends that you're starting to see today. ChatGPT is part of that. And I'll explain in just a moment in terms of how that sort of interaction goes back and forth. You also had sort of computer vision. HAL at the time had advanced computer vision, where AI algorithms can interpret and analyze visual information, allowing machines to perceive and understand images. You heard HAL say that he was reading the lips of Dave, and that's how he knew that they were going to disconnect him. And of course, you had machine learning. Modern AI relies heavily on machine learning techniques, which enable systems to learn from data and improve their performance over time. And then, sort of finally, HAL had the ability to make sort of decisions and some degree of autonomy. And AI systems today can make increasingly complex decisions based on patterns and data, often outperforming humans in specialized tasks. In fact, thinking about ChatGPT and other AI models, they've been putting them to the test on a wide range of things. You've had ChatGPT pass both the bar and the medical examinations, I think getting as high as a B. You've had ChatGPT outperform in the market by selecting stocks. And so you've already started to see, where these systems can outperform humans in very specialized tasks, providing that they have the data and the requisite modeling to make those decisions. Now, of course, again, this portrayal of HAL in 2001 raised really important ethical questions surrounding the development of AI. And it was really about ensuring that AI systems had clear guidance and ethical frameworks to prevent potential misuse or unintended consequences. And of course, as an academic, I certainly think meaningfully about where that goes in the future in terms of, sort of this intersection of ethics and advanced technology. And one of the areas that I tend to focus on is the conflict in cyberspace field. And we're debating, very passionately the degree to which you can give systems the ability to make decisions that might have lethal consequences. For example, both Russia, the United States, China, they're all pursuing machines that they're deploying in the context of war. And so, at what point, can you give a machine the ability to make a decision in which you remove the human from the loop and it responds with some type of lethal force? The sort of anecdote that many use to sort of illustrate the impact of that is, for example, when you're trying to disrupt an air attack that's inbound, giving surface-to-air missiles the ability to detect that you're going to, take an airstrike and then respond by shooting missiles that take the aircraft out of the space has become such a hot topic, because that split second that requires a human in the loop could be enough for the person to launch a missile. So those are the kinds of ethical questions that we're sort of, that we're dealing with. And of course, notwithstanding some of the socioeconomic, challenges as well. Remember, these machines are only as good as the data they're trained with. And so let's talk about some of the recent trends. And for that, I want to show one more clip. This one's a little bit shorter, but hopefully just as powerful. And so let me share one more time. So hold on. So has anyone heard of Sophia or any of the other new advanced technologies that are out there? And so that's what I'm going to try to illustrate real quick. Hang on. Every time I talk about technology, technology tends to fail on me. So give me 1 second.
We got you.
All right.
He's gonna do better than Wednesday.
See, I was concerned about the tech, big time. All right. And then start thinking about some things around a ChatGPT, because I do want to show some of the power of ChatGPT, and then I'll conclude there, and I'll field any questions that you have for me. All right, so here we go. I think I got it. All right, so 55 years later, this is what we got when it plays. Princeton, you can confirm that we tested this earlier, right?
Yeah, it's going.
All right. All right.
Try it one more time.
Give me one more time, and if not, I abandon it altogether. But I'll explain sort of the gist of it, though. All right, here we go. All right, didn't work. First time. Okay. So let me explain what essentially it was. And again, you can probably Google it. We did test it earlier. It seemed to work fine. It's probably me. But the spirit of that was to show that 55 years later, we now have, machines in the form of robots that are interacting with humans with very much sort of real conversational capacity. So there's a couple of really advanced machines out there in the form of robots. Ameca was the one I was going to show you, where the machine can speak multiple languages, has really advanced computer vision, really advanced natural language processing, in which it can communicate, and it can also sort of begin to make gestures based on what it understands the interaction should feel. And so I'll put the link in the chat before we end, so you guys can see both versions of Ameca and Sophia, and you'll see sort of how advanced it's evolved. But we're now sort of working where more advanced sort of voice and language driven intelligence, federated learning, generative adversarial networks, which are neural networks that can generate new and realistic data, based on existing data. And then in sort of this advanced, again, conversational AI. And so, while AI has made significant advancements, accurate AI that matches or exceeds human intelligence remains somewhat, still hypothetical, but a future possibility. In fact, a recent Google, sort of the lead, thought leader on AI at Google stepped down so they can go more public with sort of his concerns around some of the ethical considerations, particularly, as the boom for the recent boom in AI, vis-a-vis things like ChatGPT. And so we're thinking about leveraging AI also in ways like enhancing cybersecurity, which is another field that I focus a lot on. The ability of machines to detect vulnerabilities in systems, automate the process of patching. That's already here. And so we continue to talk a lot about workforce when probably machines are going to pick up some of that gap on their own. We're also looking at sort of healthcare and medical applications where AI has the potential to revolutionize healthcare by, providing personal diagnostics, drug discovery, treatment plans. And so you're starting to see AI be disruptive in a wide range of areas. And so I wanted to just do a couple of quick demos on ChatGPT, and then I'll pause for any any questions or comments that you guys have for me. And so I'm going to do the share screen one more time, and I am going to do a quick run of ChatGPT. So let me know, Princeton, if you can see screen one last time.
Yes, I can.
All right, I'm actually gonna play this for the minute. This is Amica. This is the one I wanted to show you.
Hello, Amica.
Hello there.
How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Glad to hear. What is your name?
I'm Chris.
Chris.
Are you
Nice
okay?
to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Are you okay if I shoot a video of you?
Absolutely.
So, Amica, what are you?
I am a humanoid robot. I am designed as a research platform for human-robot interaction.
How many fingers am I holding up?
You are holding up 4 fingers. And I like your sweatshirt.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Humans love compliments.
So that's Amica. That's one of the most advanced AI robots out there today. Sophia's another one. They tend to put them neck and neck to to sort of compare and contrast the depth of the AI models and the advanced analytics that go into it. But you can see things like computer vision, in which the computer could sense that there were 4 fingers being held up. You can sense some type of where Amica compliments the videographer. That's not based on any real sentient or emotion, but rather the idea that the model understood that humans like compliments, for example, and so it kind of drove that behavior, which was unsolicited. Which again, that's fairly advanced. And when you think of where HAL was in 1968 and where Amica is in 2023, 65 years later, you get a sense of how incredibly complex it's evolved in a short period of time. And so here's ChatGPT. If you haven't used it or haven't seen it, GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, and this is the 4th iteration of it, and or at least what they're calling sort of generation 4 of ChatGPT. And so I'm going to give you some basic examples of how we've been using it. In fact, when this first hit the public space, this is built on the back of OpenAI, which spun out of Microsoft years ago to try, in the spirit of making some of these models completely available to the public. And in fact, ChatGPT and OpenAI is releasing the ChatGPT model, and you're starting to see a lot of businesses build and layer on top of it. So one of the first things that you'll see is if you go to ChatGPT, you can actually build plugins where you can help train your model with what data you want it to pull from as it begins to assist you. But I remember one of the first things that we did with ChatGPT is I had someone from my institute. We were prepping a job description for someone to help lead our cyber policy program. And I just typed in, for example, write a job description for a cyber policy program director at FIU JGI. And this is what it spun out. And I remember doing this, and I looked at the team member, and I said, if we're not using this often for these types of tasks, then we're going to be behind the curve, right? Something that probably would have taken a staff member a few hours to put together ChatGPT probably produces in just a minute. And the quality of what's produced is really impressive, right down to, I mean, I put in the model FIU JGI, and it spelled it out entirely because it was able to pick up on that. That's the sort of advanced capability that these have. And of course, I may have to look at this job description and tweak it, calibrate it a little bit more for the need, or feed the model more of what I'm looking for so that it can tailor its response even more so to the needs of the organization. But you can see how quickly this responded. And imagine the impact that this has on organizations with high volumes of these kinds of administrative tasks. And so here's a job description that you copy and paste in a Word document, and then you go through the process of enhancing and really tailoring to make it yours. But you're seeing a wide range of this. And when I say that companies are building on top of it, there are companies now selling plugins that allow you to draft emails. So another example of where I used is I said, write an email welcoming our new marketing director, Alexis Baez, to FIU JGI. And what it did was it produced something that was pretty well done, that now I had to go through the process of tweaking again, making sure that it was my voice and it came across the way I wanted it to. But these are really powerful in terms of the ability to get things moving. And like I said, now companies are building these where they're providing a service on top of it, and it becomes more advanced. It actually will, they'll feed your email responses to the machine so that it picks up on how your voice, works, and then start to draft emails more consistent with the way that you would write it, being trained on, a year or 2 years worth of previous emails that you sent out. And that's how complex these models are today. And so there's an example of drafting some administrative tasks, such as a job description, to helping you at least think about what I should include in an email that's welcoming a new team member. But other ways that I think you could use this, and this is where I think people start to tend to get an advantage, is you can use it to help summarize sources on a particular topic, or give you ideas that you want to sort of continue to ideate for a proposal or a concept. Or I'll tell you, it's funny, I asked my son when this first came out, I said, I asked him to play with it. And the first thing he did was how to make money using, he's 13. And he says, how to make money using Chat GPT. And it gave him a list of ideas. Again, we can all debate the merit of the ideas. But it was interesting how he immediately went and it says, how do I make money using ChatGPT at 13 years old? And it gives him a menu of things that he could be thinking about in which that kind of technology would be, beneficial, whether it's freelancing, content creation, and so that's sort of, that's kind of where this technology is going. Now, where does this go next? This is an interaction where you're typing into a chatbot. At some point in the not too distant future, we're going to actually have, sort of new interface models in which, I may not have to type it. I just have to speak to the machine, and the machine can speak back, or the machine can generate what I'm asking it to generate. But this is part of, and I guess the spirit of my overall, thoughts this morning is this is part of a, nearly 60-year evolution, more than 60 years, 70-year evolution from, the mid to late 50s to today, in which we've seen just such, an incredible, leap in terms of the capability of machines and so there's lots of questions that we still have. Ethics, for example, there's a lot of discussion around sort of things like copyright and ethical concerns about, should you be using this to write your term papers? But even beyond that, sort of, questions about, at what point does technologies like this begin to displace workforce? And so one of the most exciting, and we always look at workforce and we're always concerned about preserving workforce, when really these types of tectonic shifts have a tendency to produce new workforces. And so one of the the sort of boutique, high-paying jobs now that came out of something like ChatGPT is there's something called prompt engineers, right? You probably never heard of a prompt engineer before, but they're out there now. Prompt engineers are paid, very, very well to essentially determine what are the best prompts to get the most out of models like ChatGPT. And so you're going to see new workforces sort of evolving from there. And so I think that that puts me a little over 30 minutes or so, and I promise I'd stay around 30 minutes and then certainly open it up for Q&A. And so I'll stop sharing screen. And again, apologies for the technology difficulties. As a technologist, that's really embarrassing. But nonetheless, I appreciate your patience, and I'll pause there. Princeton, Fredleen, for any questions that you might have or discussion that you want to have.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian, and thank you for taking us to that world of AI. And for me personally, I'm in healthcare. I'm looking at ways to use it to benefit our patient. I know I'm not a surgeon, but I'm sure there's a lot of surgeons right now looking at how to make AI beneficial to them. I just wanted to thank you to you, Mr. Brian, and of course, how can I forget Mr. Mark, Fifth President Mark Rosenberg, for part of this discussion this morning. I really appreciate that you're able to make that for us. And all our board members, thank you. Our friends, thank you so much for coming out this morning. Our past chairs, thank you. And I have to say shout out to TG, Tabernacle of Glory, and everyone that posts that online that make this day possible. We want to thank you. If you have a question, I want you to raise your hand so we can go in and ask the question. So, Mr. Brian, are you ready for a question?
Yes.
Okay, I have a question from Ava Jones. You can unmute yourself so you can ask your question.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Brian, for your presentation. Very impressive. My question, so throughout the presentation, you said that it's the machine or AI is outperforming human. So I would like to know a little bit of that.
Yeah, it's a great question, and probably one of the scarier questions is, again, because there's this discussion around at what point does machines displace humans in certain specific contexts, and where I say it's outperforming is again, some of the things that we've seen machines do, they have a tendency to do better than average. For example, when ChatGPT first came out, some decided to put ChatGPT to the test and engage it in things like the board exam or the medical exam. And in fact, earlier iterations of it, it passed with like a C. It was in the bottom, whatever that scale was. It passed the first exam. I think it was given was the board exam, and it passed with a C. And then the ChatGPT 4 actually passed the board exam with a B. It made it in sort of the top 15% of test takers of the board exam. And then they put it to the test on the medical exam too, and it passed the medical exam with a B. More recently, they actually tested its ability to pick stocks in the market, based on trend analysis, and it's actually outperformed the overwhelming majority. And I forget the percentile, but it outperformed the overwhelming majority of investors out there in terms of picking stocks on short returns. And so you're already seeing the sort of cognitive capacity of these machines, to surpass sort of some of the cognitive ability of people that are in some of these very specific spaces. So we're already seeing these examples of where machines have sort of outcompeted sort of human cognitive capacity. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a very general statement, but there's some evidence that's supporting certainly the advanced cognitive capacity of these machines, and I think they're going to continue to get stronger and more impressive in terms of that sort of cognitive process, and inclusive of natural language programming and computer vision. All of that is going to continue to be even more sophisticated.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. And all I have to say is great presentation, Mr. Brian. And we have another question from Joanne Celestin. Joanne, you have, so unmute yourself so you can ask the question. Joanne?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. My name is Joanne Celestin. I'm a South Florida realtor, and I think we've talked about all the pros of the AI. One of my biggest concerns is as we are continuing to use these AI, ChatGPT not being the only one, but the one that most people are familiar with, you see that pioneers of AI are having their concern, and they are also one as far as committing suicide. I wanted to know, how do we protect ourselves as we continue to use these features that AI does help? I know that some of them are recording our activity, but there are a lot of fears such as voice recognition and etc. How is it while we're using these AI features as we continue to expand that we protect ourselves? That's my question. Thank you.
It's a great question. It's a tough question. I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of, thought leaders in this space that are sort of raising the flag, in protest of the rapid evolution of these technologies without the requisite constraints to control, the impact that these technologies could have in sort of a negative space, right? And so I think you raised a couple of really important ones. One that I'll tell you, for example, that we're seeing, right now, and that I bet you'll see more of as we lead into, for example, the 2024 elections in the United States, is the proliferation of things like deep fakes, right? And so, there's lots of universities working on sort of that natural language processing element in which, now machines can, essentially replicate the voice and the image of real people in ways that might, sort of compel people to believe things that aren't true. And in fact, so that deep fake space is something also that is generated by machines that I think is also going to be a really big risk, particularly as we look at, the elections in 2024. Hopefully you'll remember this conversation when you start to see all the press on how these, deep fakes are being used in ways to sort of dupe voters into thinking things that aren't real, right? And that's just part of the natural evolution of the information space that's being flooded. But Joanna, I think to your specific question, we're talking about the need for greater regulatory, involvement, to on one end, but it also comes down to really good policy. Now, here's the challenge. We can make good policy so that, sort of average citizens, law-abiding citizens sort of follow, that policy, and sort of adhere to some of the ethical, constraints I think we have to put in place. But that's not going to stop all from using this kind of technology in nefarious ways. And so we have to make sure that we're monitoring that space as well. We've seen, sort of a surge in criminal organizations that are adopting really advanced technologies to do their work too. And so, there's an enforcement piece that policy is not going to entirely be able to deal with. But on the policy side, we're having those conversations, in the halls of Congress, globally, and in international fora that are designed to help kind of move the needle in setting, setting norms and values in place that help constrain, hopefully, the power of the technology. But I think for now, we're still very much behind from a policy perspective. We're very much behind sort of the pace of technological change. And that's not uncommon, by the way, right? But I think you're going to start to see policy discussions, elevated and sort of more rapidly to try to at least put some type of parameters around the power of these technologies. I don't think you're going to be able to put the technologies back in the box, so to speak. They're here. I think it's a matter, for society to try to figure out how best, to manage their integration in ways that, again, are least, disruptive, to our lives while still being disruptive to the way we do things. So that's going to be the challenge going forward. And I think that, that's going to be one of the most amplified policy debates, I think in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. And we do have a question on the chart, and The question asks, good morning, everyone. Any thoughts on how AI can be used to help developing countries like Haiti? So Brian, just give us your thoughts. So we have an AI. So how can we use AI for good use, especially many of us from Haiti who sees things not going well. And the question goes, how do we use AI in our advantage to help us move this country forward?
Yeah, it's a tough question. In some of the ways that it's really important to understand that the optimal AI is really predicated on the training of those models, right? And so to train models, you need lots of information and data. And one of the areas that I think, we are starting to see deployment of AI in consequential ways is in the security space. And so you think about sort of the proliferation of violence going on in Haiti now and gangs, and first you need data, but how can AI help predict and forecast, areas of violence and then provide sort of the requisite mitigation. So when you think of the data spectrum, there are really 4 important elements to how that data is used by artificial intelligence to do advanced analytics. The first part is to describe what's going on. AI can take all of the data that's out there and give you sort of a distilled understanding of exactly what's going on based on, some objective modeling. From there, it's about sort of diagnostic, right? To diagnose exactly what's going on to get to sort of, root causes. And you can leverage AI in ways to help understand that landscape, I think a little bit more. And then from the diagnostic, you get to sort of the predictive. And I think that's where it's really powerful, is to be able to predict, what's coming, where things are going to elevate, how violence is going to move, right? And start to get in front of those things so you can start mitigating. And then we'll get to a point where machines and that data can start to sort of proffer, prescriptive stuff. What can we do to help solve those problems? But again, I think the machines are predicated on really good data that it can work with in order to, sort of exercise some of the cognitive processes these machines have. And so I think there's a variety of different lanes that you can leverage these machines to support advanced analytics so that we can make good policies, so that we can take action. And you can use these machines to sort of look at, sort of historical data in ways that maybe, we're having a hard time, looking objectively now at the data. So I think those are the advanced analytics as ways that you can use AI to, I think, in ways now. That's a question that I'm sure, Dr. Rosenberg heard that question, and I'm probably going to get a call as soon as I'm off to say, all right, let's figure out how we use AI, to make a positive impact in Haiti. I know that's going to be a call, and I'll expect it, because I think it's a great question, and that's something that we could probably think really, really meaningfully about.
Very good, thank you. Before I ask Manny to ask a question, we have one in the chat. I think this one we can answer it. How the businesses can access the ChatGPT Plus? I think you just have to pay a premium for you to get that. So again, thank you for that question, the Cherry Care Staffing Agency staff. Manny, you raise your hand. You have another question. We have about 10 more minutes, maybe 9 minutes to go. So we have to give our chair for Breakfast and Learn time, Fidleen, to close out the session for us. So Manny, go ahead and.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Brian. Really appreciated the presentation. And now speaking to AI, you mentioned that on one of the presentation that the country like United States, China and Russia and so forth, planning to invest or doing some kind of research in regard to maintain their country in face of the war and everything. Do you have any idea what the United Nations does about those kind of things? Is it there's a commission in place to deal with those kind of new development in the world? In case you know anything about that, please.
No, that's a great question. And I have looked into it. The UN does have committees that are focused on understanding sort of technological disruption in a variety of ways, in the sort of socioeconomic development space, but also in sort of the geopolitical space. They haven't really weighed in heavily on whether or not countries can move in these particular directions. There are no treaties in place that sort of constrain countries' abilities to pursue advanced AI in ways that sort of bolster the security space. Conversations are going on. The UN has commissioned a study actually several years ago, in which they again put forth some of the concerns that they had about sort of technological disruption, and particularly how that might create even a more pronounced gap between sort of high sort of strong economic countries. There's also really important discussions about how AI is being used in the context of governance, right? You've seen some countries leverage AIs, like China, leveraging sort of advanced analytics, to sort of, manage society in ways that, certainly are not consistent with the liberties that we embrace, here in the United States, for example. And so, there are discussions going on about the ability of countries to sort of, interweave AI in ways that, can be disruptive, particularly the discussion I was making earlier, or the point I was making earlier, Manny, about the conversation, the conflict space has been going on. And just to kind of put some numbers to it, about 5 years ago, Russia publicly stated that it intended to transform 30% of its ground forces into robots, essentially robots fighting on battlefields. And so when you think about and you sort of evolve that out, let's say you get close to 100% of ground forces that are fighting are robots, and that means the cost on lives reduces. There's really important questions about, does that change the propensity to go to war, right? If machines are killing machines or destroying machines, does that mean there's more likely for us to go into states of conflict because of the sort of the low cost of lives, which has traditionally been such an important element of conflict, right? Particularly in stopping conflict. And so those are the kinds of questions that they're having. And again, scary conversations to have, but conversations we have to have in terms of how we then, constrain. So Manny, I don't know hopefully that answers your question, but so much to unpack in that particular element.
Yeah, great job. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much. And we have about 6 minutes left. I'm going to pass it to our chair, Fridolin Cyril, for Breakfast to Learn. And we want to say thank you to everyone. I know some of you may have other questions. Fridolin, you may have some other thing to say, so I want to pass it to you right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And thank you, Brian, for such an informative presentation. We were very happy to have you this morning, and I'm pretty sure some people might contact you later. If you don't mind to put your contact information in the chat, if anyone would like to connect with you for the information. And at this point, I'm gonna let our co-chair, Fabienne Souffrant, to make some announcement before Fabienne take over. Brian, if you have any announcement you would like to make, or anything you would like to share with us before we let you go?
No, not at all. Two things. One, again, I'm grateful for the opportunity to join you guys this morning. Two, I will say, and I'd be remiss if I didn't, FIU is doing some amazing things in these spaces. And so we're producing some really tremendous, talent in the computer sciences, particularly in the AI space. And so as you think about how your businesses evolve, consider the talent at FIU that, could help contribute in terms of how you evolve in the space of AI. The disruption is here and is going to impact every single vertical. And I think it's some of the young talent that's coming out of institutions like ours that are going to help think about how those applications unfold in your respective industries going forward. So that's all I would say. I'm going to put my email in the chat, so feel free to reach out to me at any time. Thanks, Fridolin.
Thank you, Brian. And also we would like to thank all the staff at FIU. We know that Brian is the director of the Jack D. Gordon Institute for Public Policy at Florida International University. We want to thank all the department and thank you for lending us Brian this morning. And thank you to everyone who attended. Now, Fabienne, you can make the announcement for Hackoff.
Thank you. Thank you again, Brian, for an outstanding presentation. As for YoPro, We are still taking application till June 10th. We also have Scale Up 305, the cohort. Our next cohort starts June 29th, and the deadline to apply is June 20th. So please look into it. Refer a friend, small business owners, we're waiting for you all. Also, we have a workshop. Scale Up 305 has its workshop June 7th, titled Compliance Matters, the Legal Side of Business, with Véronique Malbranche. She's the president of the Haitian Lawyers Association, and I hope you all can attend. And again, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us, and have a great weekend.
One quick announcement. Also, if you guys, I put a link in the chat.
All right, to finish, just want to say thank you, everyone. Brian, I cannot say thank you enough. And I just want to say, Smilka, thank you for making this thing possible. And without you, we will not have Brian. And I know Brian, can I say it? Brian is your favorite. That's the reason why you give us Brian this morning. It was very good. And I hope some of you can learn and understand what AI is, and then what it's going to be in our life the next 10, 15 years. So for those of you in business, we bring AI to you so that you know it's out there. Everybody's using it. Use it to your advantage. And I have to say thank you to my own tech AI, which is Carlos. Whenever I need something, I call Carlos. Thank you so much. And to the staff of Hakoff, thank you. To our board, thank you. To our past chairs, thank you. And FIU, I can we not say thank you to you. Thank you. And our tech, Peterson, thank you. And everyone that make this possible. And I would say thank you to Mr. Valerie, what is it, to help us push this online everywhere. Everyone that help us push this online, make this possible. And I would say this, we have the highest number so far today. So I want to say thank you to you guys. And have a great weekend. God bless you all.
Yes, and please fill out the post-breakfast survey that I put in the chat this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.